Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Hari Om. We are studying Ganapati Atharvashirsha Upnishad, and in last 3 sessions we saw Ganesha coming in our life in the form of the one who never manifests, the one who is unmanifested, and the one who has manifested. He is the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer of the visible universe. He is the precursor of the Devatas. Tom Brahma, Tom Vishnu, Tom Rudra, Tom Agni, Tom Vayu, Tom Surya, Tom Chandrama, Tom Brahma Bhur Bhuvaha Swaroma. Brahma, Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaraha, Om. You are Sopadika Brahman, you are Nirupadika Brahman. After describing the Ganesha so much into detail, after knowing so much about the glories of Ganesha, the devotee's heart should flow with the curiosity of bringing Ganesha in the life, bringing Ganesha in the mind. The dhi or the buddhi now should start working on only one object, only one subject, which is nothing else but Lord Ganesha. And since we have seen that if it is a manifested deity and manifested into millions and billions of forms, it is in unmanifested form also, and it is beyond manifestation and manifestation. That means it is transcendental also. So how do I worship such a God? What is right for me? How can I worship this particular God? How can I do avahanam to the God? How can I call the God amidst me? Which way I should do the avahanam? By what name should I call him when he has 1008 names? Ganapati Sahasranam is also a famous scripture. 1008 names. Which one should I say? From Lambodara, Ekadanta, Vignaharta, Ganaraja, Ganesha, Ganapati, Heramba, Lambodara, Mahodara. By which name should I call him? Should I just describe his glories by the glories that I have seen so far? And that is precisely where the Rishis, the enlightened souls, come to the help. And the enlightened soul tells us, the Rishis tell us, that if you want to worship Ganapati, do his avahanam as well as japam by pronouncing the Beej Mantra, the seed mantra or the Beej Mantra. Atharvashirsha now has come to a stage where, for benefit of all of us, the compassionate Ganaka Rishi is going to tell us what is the Beej Mantra for Ganesha. But before getting into the details, our curiosity must come out and ask some questions to ourselves. How is it that these Beej Mantras are discovered? One. Two, why it is a special prerogative of some Rishis like Ganak Rishi in case of Ganapati. Three, why it is into certain number of syllables and pronunciations in certain meter, chanda, and why the entire Vedas and Hindu scriptures of Hindu pantheon are shouting from the rooftops that it is the mantram, mantram, mantram. The word mantram itself is mananat trayate iti mantram. If I utter this mantra with a specific frequency and with complete concentration, it is supposed to trayate, save me from all the obstacles in the world. May it be adhidaivika tapa, adhibhautika tapa, or adhyatmika tapa, trividha tapa shanti. No obstacle is left because he is Vignaharta. So if I have to call the Vignaharta to Harana Karo, my Vigna, I must know how to call him. So the question comes to the mind that how is it that some words, some syllables, some monosyllables have so much of power, the power that can transcend even the worldly powers? A Siddha mantra can give a master key to the whole universe. The whole universe that has manifested in front of our eyes as whole lot of variety of countries, millions of people, billions of lives, billions of creatures of different shapes, sizes, the Prithvi Jala Apatej, all those 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, the rains that are coming, the scorched sun that is coming, the sun itself, and the stars that are still brighter and hotter than sun, the galaxies that are expanding, the galactical fights that are happening, the black holes that are developing, all this creation can be conquered by one word? How that is possible? This question should come to the mind. One, why and how these monosyllables can be called as mantra? Two, why is it that these mantras are a peculiar nature? Three, why they are fathomed only by those enlightened souls, not by every common person? And that is where the study of mantra starts. The mantra is also called Beej Mantra or by simple word mantra. If it is given by Guru, which is usually the case, it is called Guru Mantra. From the initiation of the sadhaka into the path of salvation, we take the mantra from the Guru. Pradipta mantra. Mantra is not utterance of a word. Why so? Because the word, the way we think and use, is not the way word is taught by the Hindu scriptures. The Rishis tell us that a huge banyan tree is lying in the small seed from which it sprouts. In other words, the huge manifestation of a tree is all compressed into a small thing called seed. So that means every seed has a potentiality of becoming a tree. So the manifestation of full-blown effect is nothing else but the culmination of latent potential in the cause. The cause manifests into effect. Effect can be grosser, bigger, wider. The cause can be smaller or the smallest of the small. The 12 millionth of a centimeter is the size of a red blood cell, but it provides oxygen or the energy to the entire body. The cause is infinitely small. The effect is finitely bigger. So all effects are in gross forms. All causes are in microscopic forms or smaller forms, or the forms without having forms, also formless. So if you go back to Aurobindo Ghosh, he says, word is nothing but sound expressing an idea. We are getting into the deep meaning of the mantras. When I utter a word which you are now hearing, the words are flowing from the mouth, but what is coming to you is nothing else but the sound that is originating from my mouth and is being received by your ears through an electronic instrument. But this sound has no meaning by itself unless the sound has associated itself with the meaning. So every word is an horse trotting towards the ear upon which earth has mounted. The meaning is mounted on it. A meaningless word, you know what value we give to that. So the word has a meaning as long as the meaning is associated with that word. So shabda is sound plus meaning. Only sound doesn't make any sense. It's a sound, has no meaning by itself. If that is the case, then what does the word communicate? The word communicates an meaning which is nothing else but an idea. Moment I say snow, everyone understands the snowflakes, the snowy mountains, the Himalayas, the Alps, and the snow everywhere. What happened was, a sound came which sounded like snow, but it carried the meaning called snow, and immediately I experienced the snow without being in the snow. That means the word makes you experience an idea. That is the function of the word. I'm also slightly referring to one of the best and the ancient theories of word called Spotavada, Bhartruhari of Hindu pantheon. Once we know that the words are nothing but expression of ideas which we have experienced, then when the experience, for example, when I say Alfonso mango, everybody understands because perhaps everybody has eaten it. So immediately we can collate the experience that we had and we realize what a mango is. If there is a fruit which I have not eaten, and if the name of that fruit is uttered in front of me, I ask a question, what is that fruit like? And then he says, it is almost tastes like a mango. That means again, I stretch my experience of an idea to that new fruit. So that means if I have an experience of a particular thing, I directly correlate with that experience. If I do not have the experience, then I call for identical or similar experience. Such a knowledge is called empirical knowledge or knowledge of experience. Now comes the question, I can give another example for this. We all know that Gurudeva used to get up early morning at Brahma Muhurta, 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and at sub-zero temperature, he used to take bath in Ganga. That was part of his sadhana. When we read this, none of us has gone to Ganga, that too in the Brahma Muhurta, and that too in sub-zero temperature. But when we read that he was taking that bath, immediately we compare that with a similar experience of taking a bath in some cold winter and try to gauge how difficult that sub-zero must be. This is another, when the experience is not there. This is called extrapolation of experience. You don't have the experience, you extrapolate the experience. Once this is clear to us, now it is very clear to us to know that words that are uttered are the expression of ideas, experienced or not experienced. Since every word is associated with an experience, there is a possibility of having experience and forming a word, or having a word and getting the experience. I hope I'm clear. Both possibilities exist. One who has experience can utter a word, or one can utter a word without experience also. What it means is you can transform yourself from word to experience or experience to word and vice versa. If this much is clear, now we are very clear that every word communicates an experience. If every word communicates an experience, then whatever we talk, why it is not a mantra? Because mantra is a sound word. Why every word is not a mantra? That is very important to know. When we speak about the experience. For example, when we're talking about Ganapati for last 3 sessions, we talked so much about Ganapati. He is like this, he is like that, he's like sun, he's like Rudra, he's like Brahma, he's the creator, he's the sustainer. All these are words explaining the glories of Ganesha, but none of them are going closest to the nature of Ganesha. I'll give you an example. When I say word bacteria, it can also be described like this: one that causes infection, one which is microscopic, one which cannot be seen with the eyes. These are also words trying to express that, but that is not the exact expression. The exact expression of the word is bacteria. What it means is every kalpana, idea, or jnana or experience has a word very close to it, and there are many words for it which are away from it. Every idea or experience, when explained into the words, there are few words which are very close to that experience, and few words are away from that experience. When you try to find out or search the closest word that can express an idea, that word is called mantra. Then comes the question, how will I come to know which is the closest idea to the expression? And that brings us to the subject of Ganapati. If I want to pray to Ganapati, I want to call him by the name, and repetitive calling is what I'm going to do so that he comes in my life and makes my life obstructionless, vignaharta. To do that, I will have to find out the closest word, and that closest word is possible only for those who have gone to the closest of the Ganapati or the idea. So the rishis, by the help of contemplation or the meditation, when they go to what is called a supra-mental plane, it's not only supra-physical, supra-mental plane, transcending the mind. At that point of time, they hear a sound, the sound which is heard inside the buddhi guha, in the state which is beyond the mana, unmana, utmana avastha, beyond mind. That sound which is heard is the sound that they bring out for our compassionate approach, and they tell us that this is Lord's nearest name. If this is the case, then the Ganaka Rishi, the Rishi who gave us Ganapati Atharvashirsha, way back in Atharva Veda, some centuries back before Christ, when he was contemplating and he was in the supramental state, Unmani Avastha, he saw Lord Ganesha and uttered a word which became the Beej Mantra practice, that is the direct and the closest word that can describe Lord Ganesha. And that is why we have no authority to ask any question about the mantra unless we ourselves go and experience and disprove the experience of Ganaka Rishi. That is why the mantra being Om Ganganapataye Namaha. The question here is, how Gang, the word Gang, which is going to be described in detail as we move forward, but how this word, why not Lam? Lam is a word used for Muladhara Chakra. Ram, Manipur Chakra. Yam. So why Yam there, Ram there, and Gang here? A simple mantra, Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Om. Supposed to be the most powerful mantras, Gayatri Mantra. Why the words are arranged in this manner and how they become powerful, and its Siddhi gives power of a sun. Dhiyo yona prachodayat. Dhiyo yona. The way the effulgence of sun's light is there in the entire world, and the way it shines and lightens the world, let the same Savitru come in my buddhi and lighten everything that I have around me. That means I will be the bearer of knowledge. If this is how it is going to happen, then we also need to understand a little more about the sound and its relations with the modern science. Majority of us, either we believe what is said in Hinduism simply because, oh, it is so bad to talk against God. That's why Swami Vivekananda says it is better to be an atheist rather than the theistic hypocrite. The reason is we do not ask question and we believe blindly. And that is why we need to cross-check the ancient science with, luckily, the developments that are coming into the modern science. So we will also try to see how the science of mantra is matching with or is coming close when quantum mechanics is taken into consideration, when Einstein's theory of relativity is taken into consideration. The sound that we say, if the sound carries the idea or sound fructifies the idea, then the Hindu sages took the idea of sound to the primordial sound. Imagining unimaginable state of zero creation. It is one of the most difficult imagination to do. That when nothing was existing. When nothing was existing and the manifestation started. So-called our Big Bang theory. So when that Big Bang happened, what happened first? Frantic efforts are being made to find out that through the polyhedron collider, the God's particle. Still not in the hand. But we are not talking in Hindu scriptures of particle. Particle is a much later theory. Akashad Vayuhu. Akash, space is the first, because unless you have space to put the things in, so first creation is Akash. Then Vayu. Now the entire astronomy says it was all in a gaseous form. Akash, Akashad Vayu, Vayu Jalaha, then water. Vayu Agnihi, the fire, because everything was hot, including the earth. Then Jalam, and then last Prithvi. This is the sequence of creation. But when the creation started, the first creation, when it happened because it was an idea, it was a concept, it was a kalpana. Naturally, the sound got associated with it. So that is why the Shakti principle, the energy principle, because mass and energy, they are interchangeable. That is what Hindus have been telling from ancient days. Thanks to Einstein, it got proved. So when we say E is equal to mc square, we are talking about nothing else, the relationship between matter and the energy. What looks like a matter is essentially energy in vibration. A wall maybe of cement looks very solid, but if you get into the every atom of that particular wall, organic or inorganic, what we will be finding is a common structure of the protons and the subatomic particles. And in what state they are? They are constantly moving, vibrating, because there are shells in which they vibrate, So if we see inside, there is a positive energy field, there is a negative energy field, and they are constantly in motion. This motion, if plotted on a piece of paper, on a graph, it will give a wave form. This energy, how powerful it is, the atom, which cannot be, even it can be seen only in the bubble chamber, as they say, but it is one of the smallest particle. But for some reason, if we decide to separate the atom, nuclear fission, it leads to atom bomb. And we have seen what destruction, how much amount of energy is released from one atom. And they say if nuclear fusion takes place, the power of the energy could be 100 or million times more. What does this mean? It means the energy is the Kriyatmak Shakti. That is why she is the Shakti of Shiva. The conscious principle which created this universe, his counterpart is Shakti. So this Shakti is called Urja, or energy, or Shakti is the one which is making everything. So vibration, everything is in vibration, which is in the wave form. So for waveform pulsations, spandanam is the nature of entire universe. And when spandanam is there, nothing is steady, because what vibrated a second back is gone and the new second has come. What it means is nothing in this world is permanent. It appears permanent, but it is constantly in a vibratory state, and this vibration is associated with a sound. If it is associated with the sound, then where are those sounds? We commonly and stupidly believe that all the sounds that are there in the cosmos are audible to us. Unfortunately, they are not. The frequencies of sound that the human ear can hear, there are sounds which are of higher frequency than that, which we call ultrasonic frequency. These ultrasonic frequency sounds are basically of shorter, very high frequency wave, but short length. And there are infrasonic waves, which are long, low frequency waves, 10 to 20 cycles per second, to be very precise from physics point of view. So we have infrasonic sounds, ultrasonic sounds, and in between is the width that is audible to human ears. Ultrasonic sounds can be heard by the creatures and the dogs, etc. But these ultrasonic waves have such a power, it won't be a surprise to know that in surgery we have what is called as ultrasonic knife. It can cut a tumor. Sound can cut a tumor. We use ultrasonic waves also in physiotherapy to heal ourselves. An ultrasonic wave can kill cockroaches. We all know there is an instrument that comes. What is that? It sends the signals and the waves, no harmful to the human. Why? We can't hear it. Similarly, the infrasonic waves, which are basically low frequency but a long wavelength waves, these are the waves, if they come closer to the human beings, we suddenly start feeling nauseous and vomitous. There's an interesting example, interesting incidents in science, history of science. There is a scientist called Gavarov. He's an engineer and a professor. He was the first one who did research on infrasonic waves. I'm telling all this simply because we need to know what sound means and why mantras are so powerful. He himself had his office at a top floor of a very tall building. And he noted that every time he used to go to his office and work on his research, whatever he was doing, he was feeling very nauseous and vomitish. And then he used to leave early and go home. But he, being a scientist by nature, he wanted to investigate why it is happening there, because it was not happening at any other place. He was quite a healthy individual. And then when he probed into it, he found that on the building next to his building, which was almost equally tall, had an air conditioning machine which was making a sound of almost 6 to 7 cycles per second, almost matching the infrasonic waves. Moment that happened to him, he decided to investigate further on infrasonic waves, and he created a whistle, same like our whistle, but not small one, almost 6 feet long. And with the help of compressed air, he modulated the frequency to create infrasonic waves. Unfortunately, the person, the operator to whom this whistle was given to be handled, he died on the spot because of infrasonic waves. That is how these infrasonic waves are later on used even by the police force. In fact, it is not allowed to be used. It is called curdler, because these infrasonic waves can cause, if the riots are there and if the infrasonic waves are used, all the people who are demonstrating, they immediately will have nausea and lose motion there and there itself. All the people who are protesting will have that effect. Why? Infrasonic waves. That means that sound wave has that effect on the mind. Let me give you also an interesting further example. We all know Santorini Island in Greece. It is almost everybody's wish to go there for vacation, etc. Beautiful Greek island, that blue and white color and domes and whatnot. We have seen clear, crystal clear water, etc. But the surprising part of that island is very, very few tourists stay there for more than a week, because most of them suffer from some amount of uneasiness. After investigating, it was found that Santorini Island is a volcano island. The sea there, at the sea bed, there is a constant murmur coming out of earthquake, which sends these infrasonic waves, and infrasonic waves affect the mind of human beings and make them nauseous and make them, they feel euphoric, drowsy, etc. In fact, most of the highway drivers have been found that the accidents are happening because of lack of coordination. That is what we all hear. But factually, what is found is the humming sound of a car going at a constant speed creates infrasonic waves, and that leads to the madness feeling or euphoric feeling and lack of coordination in the minds of the drivers. If so much is the importance of sound, that means sounds do affect the way we feel. If it can affect me in a negative manner, it can affect me in the positive manner too. In other words, if I am able to have control over the vibrations of the sound that I produce from myself as a body, and if these vibrations are in absolute consonance with the cosmic vibrations, and cosmic vibrations means vibrations of each and everything that is around me, if I am able to have what is called as resonance of the vibration. Now, resonance word everybody has heard, more so people with science background would understand that when the army marches on a bridge, suddenly they are asked not to tap the foot, left, right, left, right. They don't do that. Why? Because by doing that, their frequency matches to that of the bridge and the bridge collapses. Now, it sounds very funny that somebody just tapping left, right, and the bridge collapses. It does. Even a tower like Burj Khalifa, when it was at the top, the acoustic engineering came into the picture, because the winds that are blowing at that level, if at all they match with the frequency of the building will start swaying. What it means is, it is possible that the external frequencies do affect us, and we can affect, or we get affected, or we can affect the frequencies outside, because the whole game is of only frequencies of vibration. What it means is, the primordial Omkar, the first that had come, is an eternally humming sound that is still going, and it will be there till the universe is there, till the creation is there. And that is one of the reasons why the sages or the rishis say the universe is always singing. There is always a sound. So this world is nothing else but the sound. That is the reason why a yoga is developed and dedicated to that, which is called Nada Yoga. By simply mastering the sound, one can reach God. This is as far as the frequency thing is concerned. As luck would have it, in 1928, for the first time, a scientist came out with a new discovery, and that is the one which startled everybody. And the discovery was that the brain has waves. So far, it was considered to be an organ which is just processing the things, and it is inside the skull, and that is all we knew about it. But now we know it produces 4 types of waves. And every one of us have heard of electroencephalogram, the map of the waves of the brain. And these 4 brain waves are called alpha, beta, theta, and delta. Surprisingly, the delta waves which are there in the brain are only seen when you are in deep sleep. And what is the frequency of these delta waves? 1 to 3 waves per second. So moment you see on the EEG the delta waves coming, they are slow waves. Only in deep sleep they come. And the problem these days with everybody is delta waves are not generated. There is no deep sleep. When the delta waves are not properly generated, in the awakened state, all other waves create chaos for us. That is why we always say that stress. Why? Because the first 3 waves, alpha, beta, theta, whatever stress they create, delta waves flatten it at the end of the day, or whenever the body is tired. The body never gets tired. It is the mind who gets tired. Mind bears the effect. The body bears the effect. Mind gives the cause. Otherwise, somebody who is sitting in a laboratory and working for 24 hours or 12 hours or 8 hours is not doing any bodily activity, but he's extremely tired because it is the mind, and it's asking for delta waves, that is stoppage of the functioning of the brain. In fact, the delta waves are created only when a mother sings a lullaby for the baby. Not that the mothers have a very good voice. They're expert in producing delta waves to their child. Otherwise, they would have made their husbands also go to sleep. It doesn't happen. Then, out of the love and affection that you have, the baby is cuddled in the arms with the intense desire from within that my baby needs to sleep. She hums something. That's why most of the lullabies are of humming type. The frequency is such that only delta waves are produced. That is why these days white noise is created for getting the sleep. You get instruments also. But the purpose to tell is there is a delta wave. Then there is a theta wave. There are about 4 to 7 cycles per second. During theta wave in the brain, you are relaxed, but you are full of creativity. Most of the yogis are in this state. They are relaxed as good as sleeping. Their heart rate is low. The respiration is regular and rhythmic. They are quiet and composed. And the brain is extremely creative. That is why when Gurudeva used to deliver the lectures, hundreds of them used to listen with rapt attention and sweetness in the words, because he was in the state of theta waves, the brain. Those with beta waves, there are about 13 to 22 waves coming cycles per second. They are the one which are coming basically from the frontal brain, the front part of the brain, where they are constantly thinking for the everyday operation. So they have heightened awareness and anxiety. So the alpha waves gives you heightened anxiety, while the beta waves gives you a constant rajagunatmaka prakriya, flitting from here to there to here to there to here. That time the waves also take the same shape. What it means is the way you think, the waves will be created. The way the waves will be created, brain will be functioning. And the way the brain functions, you will perceive the world. Once this much is clear to us, we can now see that if the thoughts that are coming in your mind, what is thought? Unaudible word is thought. Thought is unexpressed idea. It is formed. It is not expressed. It is waiting for the expression, but it is a word. Word, when it comes from the mouth, it is called Vaikhari. The word has come from the mouth. But what about that thought which has formed the word but stuck here below the vocal cord? But still it is a word. It is in the form of a thought. Expressed or unexpressed, a word can make or mar. Sabad sabad har koi kahe, sabad ke hath na pav. Ek sabad aushudh kare, ek sabad kare ghav. Kabir Maharaj had so much of deep meaning he knew about the words and the mantra. Once we know this particular concept, now it is easy for us to know that those rishis, when they are in the intense state of white heat of meditation, as Gurudeva calls it, in that intense meditation, they do see something and they do hear something. What they hear is not somebody speaking to them, it is a hearing of something that is coming from within. And that within whatever is coming is nothing else but the most primordial idea that is coming. It is called Paravani. Para speech. The purest speech of anyone is Paravani. It is there right within. When they want to further express whatever has come to them, then by the time it reaches the Anahata Chakra, that is the place where it starts taking some concrete shape which can be related to the present universe or the world. Idea is now becoming visible. Pashyanti Vani. Pashyanti is visible. A seed form, purest possible word, Paravani, has now become visible. Pashyanti. Though visible, yet not ship-shaped. When it moves further up and come to Kanthasthana, vocal cord, it gets the ship-shaping of the word. And the association has already taken place between the word and its meaning. Now it is fit and ready to be expressed. When it gets expressed through the articulation, it becomes Vaikhari Vani. Para Pashyanti Madhyama Vaikhari, it is called Chatvari Vakpadani. That is happening simply because of the blessing of Ganesha. That is why we say, Tom Chatvari Vakpadani. Ganapati, you are the 4 different types of Vani. Once we know that these are 4 different types of Vani, then it becomes easier for us to know how the mantra should be further taken into consideration. The rishis, and almost all of them, without exception, because all of them had same unique experience in the transcendental stage. In the worldly stage, our experience varies. We all have eaten mangoes, but everybody's experience is different. Why? Because the experiencer is different in this world. One who transcends the experience of this world, there the experience is unique, alone, and unambiguous. That's why all the rishis who went into that trance stage in the Unmani Avastha, they first saw that the Lord is expressing itself, and the Lord means Ishvara, not a specified Ishvara like Ganapati or Rudra or Shiva or Uma or Parvati or Tarak, Kali or Chandi. No, the Ishvara Tattva itself expressed itself into 50 characters. Those 50 characters, or the Varna alphabet, those 50 are called Matruka. Matruka has come from the word Matru, means mother. They are mother of all the words that will ever come. So those 50 are nothing else but the Varnamala of Sanskrita. And those 50 are also called as Nada of Shiva. So that symbolic Damaru, when Shiva makes the sound of Damaru, that Damaru Dhvani is nothing but those Beej Akshara called 50 Matrukas. These 50 Matrukas are arranged in vowels and consonants. Swara, Vyanjana. We all know that. A, I, U, E, I, O, Aha. These are swaras. How are they pronounced? Right from the vocal cord, they get expressed straight into the air. They are not obstructed by anything inside the articulating organ called mouth. That is why they do not hit anywhere. Without hitting, they come out. That means they are as good as Anahatanada. That is why vowels are considered to be more powerful. Most of the mantras will have vowels into it, then some consonants. Because consonants are short, they come out only when they hit. Danta, Talavya, Aushtha, Murdhanya, that is how they are named. G, P, Bh. This is Aushtha, Bh, P, Bh, because it has an obstruction or it is released slowly. Sh, S, H. These are all Varnamala. Now they have also found out, when I'm talking about the power of vowel and consonant, it is not just an arbitrary thing. It has been measured. Every single vowel has a power of 9 to 47 microwatts, while every consonant or a vyanjan has barely 2 microwatts of power. Why? Because Hindu Shastra does not consider word as word, they considered word as Brahman, the Almighty's expression. That is why the words have to be used very carefully. And mantra is the one which understands these matrukas, or the 50 first alphabets. When they are formed, then those 50 mix with each other and the words are formed. Then two words come together, sandhi, another word is formed. Again, two words can come together to form further sandhi, and then complicated and complex words are formed. But if we go back to the origin, we will have to go back to the principal 50 matrukas. That is why, what is the first combination that described Ganapati? That is Beej Mantra. What is the first combination that described Shiva Rudra? That is the first combination. And that is how Beej Mantras are many a times single alphabet. Let me give you example. Glaum. This is Prithvi Bija. This is the sound for the earth. Now, Prithvi for us, it's around in color. These are all complex statements later on. Bija, Bija or Prithvi is Glaum. So whenever Prithvi Bija is there, for example, in our Shad Chakras, the Prithvi Bija is there the Mula Mantra will be Glaum. It is called Beej Mantra. Glaum is also used as a Beej Mantra for Ganapati. Why? Because Ganapati is sitting at Muladhara Chakra. Muladhara Chakra is Prithvi Tattva. That is why Glaum is also a Beej Mantra. That's why Ganapati doesn't have only one Beej Mantra. There are many Beej Mantras, of which the most famous, enunciated in Atharvashirsha, is Om Ganapataye Namaha. Klim, when we say, it is called Kamaraj Beej, desire. This is into Swadhisthana Chakra. So we have Klim, we have Rim. Rim is Maya. That is why Maya being Lakshmi, all the Lakshmi Stotras, Bija Stotram has Rim, Shrim, because those are Shrim. These are all Bija Mantras for Lakshmi. We also have some Bija Mantras for Brahma itself. Swaha, Fat, Kaushat, Om. These are all Brahma Dyotaka Bija Mantras. This is all given in Rudra Yamala Tantra. There are many Tantra books which are. Now this Rudra Yamala, we already know that stupid movie called Yamala Pagala. That Yamala word has come from this Yamala. Yamala means one who is practicing the Bija Mantras. And when he practices Bija Mantras, he gets God intoxicated. And that is why he behaves like almost a mad person. So Yamala Pagala. But that is actually Rudra Yamala Tatu. When we know that these kind of Bija Mantras are there, then the Rishis in their transcendental state or Unmani Avastha combine these Bija Mantras because they see Ganapati in the mantra. That is why they come and tell us, recite this, you will go to the Ganesha. No, but I am going every day to the mandir and I am doing my puja. Then also you will reach, but that will take 1001 births. Direct route is the shortest possible route. So you want to go by Pippalika Marga, the ant's way, or Vihanga Marga, the bird's way. Bija Mantra is bird's way of reaching the destination. That is why this mantra is supposed to be Siddha Mantra. Siddha means the mantra that is to be uttered, first of all, should come from the source of the mantra. Who is the source of the mantra? One who has realized the mantra is the source of the mantra. That is why mantra is always taken from a guru. How is the mantra given? The mantra is given through any of the indriyas. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to take the tongue out of the shishya and write the mantra in the air on the tongue. Because Siddha Guru had given it, the tongue used to become pavitra and the mantra used to become Siddha. Usually, the mantra is given in ear, so it is called Kan Mantra. It has become a common word also in Hindi. Kan Mantra Guru ne de diya, Kan Phuka. Kan Phukna, ye Nath logon ki sampradaya hai. Gorakshanath, Machindranath, all those Nathas, they give these mantras like Kan Phuk ke. Kan mein phukna matlab mantra dena. That's why many times Kan Phata yogis or Kan Phuka yogi aise bhi bolte hain. So these mantras are given only by Guru. These original alphabets called matrukas and their combination, once they are given, then you start reciting that particular mantra. After reciting the mantra has certain vibration. In order to see that the vibrations come in a proper form, for example, when we do Omkara, we have U, Ma, and Ardhachandra and Anuswar on the top of it. That Anuswar is Ardha Anuswar, Ardhendula Sitam, Tarenurdham Etatvamudu Swarupam. We are going to come there also. But when we pronounce that, it has to be pronounced in the most systematic manner so that none of the vibrations are distorted. Why? If you are calling Sham by the name Ram, then Sham will not come, Ram will come. Ram will not come, Sham will come. In the similar manner, the frequencies with which you propitiate a god, the frequencies have to be absolutely perfect. And there, a small proviso is important. Whose pronunciations are perfect? One who is expert in Sanskrit? No. The pronunciation becomes perfect and the vibrations come out perfect only when they are uttered with pure heart. So a dacoit could be a PhD in Sanskrit and he starts saying Om Ganganapate Nama, Ganapati will not come because the heart is not pure. A purer heart uttering a mantra, the mantra gets shine and it shines forth. And then its siddhi becomes shorter and faster. That is why gurus do not give mantra to every shishya. Only when the shishya has done his purity of heart, chitta shuddhi, and has reasonably attended the concentration practice through yoga or ekagrata, then the guru, he knows that now the person is mature enough to be given a mantra, and then he gives a mantra to them. That is called Guru Mantra. That is why people in this world strive hard to go to the Guru and then only ask one thing, Gurudev, please give me a mantra. Why is it so? Why? They know all the mantras written in the scriptures. Even I can give you a list of all the mantras of all. There are books available for each Beej Mantra. Why don't we just pick up one and start saying Shiva Beej Mantra and tomorrow Bhagavan Shiva has come? It doesn't happen. Because it has to come from an authority or adhikari purusha to adhikari shishya. And that is how once that particular mantra is repeatedly said, it is called japam. Japam, when the japam is continuously done, then the vibrations start replacing the waves of the brain. 4 waves of the brain we saw. These 4 waves, alpha, beta, theta, and delta, in combination form your present state. So if you are in an excitatory state and under stress and all that, your beta waves are very high. But if you are into the waves which are theta waves, where you are calm and relaxed, not much of activities happening in terms of flitting mind, the mind is focusing on a single object. At that point of time, if we do this mantra pathanam, then the entire consciousness that you are carrying with you slowly starts settling to the another level of consciousness. That is called migration of consciousness from ordinary mortal's consciousness to slowly moving towards extraordinary immortal person's consciousness. This migration is possible because of the vibrations that are being created now by the mantra. So ekagrata purva mantra ucharana done by Chitta Shuddhi, Ekagra Vyakti, Sadhaka, then the consciousness starts getting elevated, and that is when you slowly starts vibrating in the frequency of the cosmos around. When the frequency of cosmos and you match, it is called a resonance. A resonating frequency when you have, then in the cosmos there is another person sitting in another country, and I am sitting here, but now my frequencies are matching with the cosmos. I will be able to know what is happening to that person, and his mind I can penetrate and find out. That is called Siddhi. Once the resonance goes and reaches to the higher conscious, then the higher consciousness can call the cosmos or the nature or the Prakriti and say anything, the Prakriti will obey. Bhagavan Hanuman said, he took Bhagavan Ram's name and said that let me be mighty in this Sri Lanka. And he became mighty. And when he wanted to become smaller than a mosquito, Anima, Garima, Laghima, Mahima, all siddhis are possible because these siddhis are pre-existing into the cosmos. Now they have become your slaves because you are one with the cosmos. If you can be one with the cosmos, then the aim is not to be one with the cosmos, but to be one with the creator of the cosmos. That is why those who are able to resist the temptation of power of controlling the cosmos only go through the thin alley further and then become Brahmibhuta, or as Gurudeva calls it, God walking on the earth. So much of power can come to you. We call it a power. For them, it is a Sahaja Siddhata of the Siddhis. Once we know that this is what happens, then the next important criteria we must see. This is about mantra. So for mantra, what we studied is sound plus meaning equal to word, moving from inner recesses of our mind out and communicating with somebody. And then the same word can be used as mantra to realize an idea by using a mantra which is the closest utterance of the deity concerned. That much we saw. Now, one other important thing that is found out is, and I would like to start for that with again a scientific experiment, we have what is called Chladni patterns. Chladni patterns. Chladni was a violinist in 17th century. He was the first person, he was an expert violinist. He was the first person who did a very strange experiment. On the strings of the violin, he put a very thin sheet of tin, on which he put some sand, very fine sand. And then he started playing violin. And to his surprise, he found that with each swara that he was doing on the violin, the circles and concentric circles, identical circles were formed in the sand. These patterns that he saw, then he changed the tune. He took some other symphony and started playing. That time he saw another shape, but identical shapes. And the shapes that he found out are called Chladni pattern. Now, this Chladni pattern was observed in 17th century, but was studied as a science in this century by none else than the pioneer of this particular science called Hans Jenny in Switzerland. What Hans Jenny did is, he found out whether sound energy can create shape. And to his surprise, he developed an instrument also called tonoscope, and he found out that whenever you use low tone, simple shapes are formed. Whenever you use high tones of the sound, complex shapes are formed. And the shapes that were formed by this particular Hans Jenny clearly proved that sound energy can be seen to be transmitted into certain shapes. And what he found was, and which is now accepted in the science, is every sound creates a certain shape. Every sound creates a certain shape in the material that is brought closer to that sound. That means every sound is an energy. Every energy represents itself into some form of matter, and that matter takes a particular shape. That means the shape of the matter and the frequency of the sound have a relationship. This was found out and it's being now investigated. It is called psychotronics. And the science of finding out what the energy does to the matter and the matter does to energy is called cymatics, which is a growing science, supposed to be a growing science now. But this was known to the Hindu ancient sages from time immemorial. They realized that these shapes, if every sound energy can have a shape, then if Om Gang Ganapataye Namaha is the mantra, then this mantra also as a sound energy must have some shape. And these shapes are nothing else but yantras. Yantra. So you will always find there is a Shri Yantra, Ganesha Yantra, Shiva Yantra. Yantra means on a piece of metal sheet, usually gold or copper. Those are also selected for a specific reason, because they are their own neutral vibrations are closer to the depiction of the deity that is formed in the form of these shapes and signs. Usually these yantras have 4 doors, they have corners, they have triangles or circles, and then there is a bindu. We are not getting into the details of yantra. It's quite a lengthy detail. What does that bindu means? What is the Ishvara represents the bindu? Kamala represents what? How many petals you can have? From 2 to 1,000 petals can be there. Those are all detailed parts of yantra jnana. But yantras are made on this particular sheet, and on the yantras, the mantras are recited. So you have 2 shortcuts to the god and goddesses now. One through the yantra, one through the mantra. So mantra and yantra both are, mantra is the audible sign of the expansion of cosmos. Yantra is the visible manifestation of expansive cosmos. One is audible, one is visible. Both are manifestations of nothing else but the transcendental power. Because the transcendental power doesn't have the shape or the size like what we can imagine, because our imaginations are very limited. We cannot imagine more than 2 hands. That is why by extrapolation we give 4 hands to the god. Because if these 2 can do so much, 4 will be doing more. Beyond this, our intellect cannot go. But the rishis know, if at all when somebody has to represent the gods into the colloquial fashion in form of some shape and the sound, then it should be mantra and it should be yantra. And that is why one of the recent experiments which are done is called bioenergy experiment. It was done by Robert Paulitas, a Czechoslovakian scientist. It is available to be seen. The actual experiment is also available to be seen. If you want, I can provide the link also. The experiment is very interesting. In that experiment, this particular gentleman, Paulitas, what he did is, he created certain things which he called as magnetizers. He gave the name magnetizer. But he created some shapes on those bodies called magnetizers, which are metal bodies. And then he is to take those metal bodies close to his body, say the head or even the body, and move it in a certain manner without touching the body. And then he is to say that now the energy of my body has been transferred to this place. And he demonstrated it by moving the compass needle, by making certain flies were killed through this energy, bioenergy. And he proved it, and he created as many as 15 different objects of different. And when he was asked how much energy can be harnessed, he said, I'm too nice a person, I can only kill flies. Beyond this, energy can be harnessed which can kill whatever you want to kill. What it means is, it is possible that there is an energy already existing everywhere, including my body, which is called bioenergy. It can be exploited this manner. Luckily, he was not a yogi, but some scientists or some other people wanted to verify his experiments, and when he went there, the observation that they made are very important and relevant to us. They were not relevant to them so much, but they were relevant to us, because they found that bioenergy cannot be ascertained by voltameter or electrometer. That was something surprising. Second, bioenergy could be transmitted to any and every object. The third and the most important thing is, this Paulitas himself, when he was performing these experiments, they took his pulse and respiratory rate and found that his heart is beating at the slowest and his respiration is the most rhythmic respiration. They could not find out any significance, but they just observed this. But for us, we know it is what precisely happens to the yogi. The way Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to tell his doctor that, please let me know if you are going to check my pulse, because many times it is absent. A yogi willingly stops his heart, does breathing so slowly that he can go down to as many as nil breathing. Nil breathing, not even one beat or one cycle. Normally 12 per minute is our respiratory rate. That is how yogi, Hatha yogi, increases his lifespan. His breathings, because normally our shastras believe that the life is proportionate by fixed number of respirations and fixed number of heartbeats that are given to you. Either you can increase and enhance it. By smoking too much, you will die early. Why? Those respiratory cycles are lost. Or you can prolong the cycles by breathing slowly, the way Hatha yogi does, and then they can live for 200 years. We have examples in the past. Changdeva, 700 years. And that is through yogic breathing, as they call it. A simple, resonant, smooth, rhythmic breathing, slowed down to an extent where it can stop altogether during samadhi. So this is what then the Tantra aspect came into it. So we saw mantra, we saw yantra. What is Tantra? Utilizing the mantra and the yantra together for the purpose of exploiting the Shakti and directly doing the worship of Shakti or energy is called Tantra. Tantra is Tantra Yoga. Tantra Yoga is a separate branch by itself. Tantra Yoga, many people have written many on that. It is Mahanirvana Tantra, Kularnava Tantra, Yoga Tattva Upanishad, Yoga Kundalini Upanishad. All these are treatises on Tantra Yoga. Swami Shivananda Maharaj has written a beautiful book on Tantra Yoga. Tantra Yoga is nothing but worship of the manifested power of, or immanent power of, one who is not immanent, that is Shiva's power of Shakti. So the sadhakas, through their Pashu, if they are tamasic, Veera Rasa, if they are rajasic, and Divya Puja, if it is a sattvic, they worship Shakti. While they are worshipping the Shakti, they use both Yantra as well as Tantra, and they also use what is called as Nyasa. Nyasa, just to give an example, we are not getting into the details of Tantra Yoga at all. It is a separate subject by itself. But this is in relation to mantra. We are trying to see that once the Tantra develops further, the Devi, the Tripura Sundari, the Baglamukhi, all these Devis, when they come and become one with us, the body starts completely saturated with the energy. The body can transmit the energy, and this transmission of energy is done with the tips of the right hand. They touch certain parts of the body and then they transmit the energy, and that is how the Shakti is imbibed inside the body through the Nyasa, through Mudras, through Kavacha. There are different aspects of Tantra Yoga. So that means Beej Mantra is the direct, closest expression of the deity concerned, and that deity being the Ganesha, the now Ganapati Atharvashirsha is moving towards the narration of that particular mantra. If you want to see the God in the form of some pratika, some representation, then you have a choice of making a murti. For example, for Vishnu, you have Shaligram from Gandaki Nadi, Gandaki river. For Shiva, you have Banalinga from Narmada river. For Shakti, you use normally a metal plate. For Surya, a crystal is used. For Ganapati, a red stone called Shonalinga. Shon means red. Shonalinga is used. These are the pratikas for Upasana of Ganapati. But if you want to do the mantra, then the Beej Mantra is used. And for that Beej Mantra, Atharvashirsha says, Ganadi Purvam Ucharya Varna. Ganadi Purvam Ucharya. So first is utter the first alphabet G. G Ganadi. In the alphabetical line of G, Ganapati G, take the first G. Ganadi Purvam Ucharya. First pronunciation is G. वर्ण आदि तदनंतरम. आदि वर्ण कौन सा है? अ. सो गणादि गणादि पूर्वम उच्चार्य, दैट मीन्स ग इज द फर्स्ट उच्चार. आदि तदनंतरम, वर्ण आदि कौन सा? अ तदनंतर, ग अ इज द सेकंड. अनुस्वारः परतः. अनुस्वार परम तरति मीन्स on the top put an anuswara. Paratar. Paratar means on the top. So put an anuswara. Ardhendu, ardhendu lasitam. Ardhendu means ardha indu lasitam. Ardha indu means, ardha means half. Indu means moon. Indu means moon. Dulasita. Lasita means adorn. So adorn that and g. G is adorned with ardha indu, right? And then a small dot on it. Then Tarena Ruddham. Tara is the name for Omkar. If you go to Buddhism, one of their famous mantra is Tare Tuttare Tare Saha. Tare means Om. It is called Mahayana. It is like Gayatri mantra of Mahayana Buddhism. Tara means Om. Tarena Ruddham. That means to grow. Ruddham is to grow. Right? That means you grow that with Om. So Om से उसको बढ़ा दो, make it bigger. So Om, G, A, Ha, Anuswar, Ang. Etat Tava Manu Swarupam. Manu means Manana. Manana means mantra. This is your mantra Swarupa. So Ganak Rishi has given the Beej Mantra for Ganapati. G, A, Ardhachandrakar, Anuswar and Omkar together. Then he says, Gakaro Purva Rupam, Akaro Madhyama Rupam, Anushwarascha Antarupam, Binduhu Uttara Rupam. How these are to be said? G, Gakaro Purva Rupam, G is Moolamaya. Akaro Madhyama Rupam, A is Srushti Prakruti. Anushwarascha Antarupam, Laya, Bija Rupa. Binduhu Uttar Rupam, Bindu Brahma Uttarati Rupam. All the Ganesha's Rupam, both unmanifested, manifested, and beyond manifestation, unmanifestation, all has come together in Gang. That is why Beej Mantra's most important alphabet is Om, Gang. Gang means Gakaro, Puro Rupam, Akaro, Madhyam Rupam, Anushwara, Achanta Rupam. Nadaha Sandhanam. Sandhanam is to hold together. Nada is Manolaya. Nadaha Sandhanam. That means we are doing a sound of dissolving our personality so that we go to the superconscious personality, supraconscious personality. So then Samhita Sandhi, some dha, put together with a mathematical precision. Samidha, we have Samidha in the Yajna. Samadha means that which has been done or brought together with mathematical precision. Samhita Sandhi, Sandhi means, Sandhi is fusion of morpheme. Morpheme is a concept in English literature. Morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of language is called morpheme. So this is Sandhi of the smallest meaningful varnas that have been brought together, the matrukas that have been brought together. And that is why this particular mantra then becomes Om Gang Ganapataye Namaha. And that is why the whole Beej Mantra has been explained. How it is prepared has been explained. It has been told that this is the only Manu Swarupam, Mananam Swarupam mantra for that. Or who has told this? Saisha Ganesha Vidya. Sa Esha Ganesha Vidya. This is Ganesha Vidya. Ganti Bajana is not Ganesha Vidya. Prasadam Deke Khana, Modak Khana is not Ganesha Vidya. Saisha Ganesha Vidya. So Ganapati should be understood from the perspective of all the three, the Nirupadika Brahma, Sopadika Brahma, Ishvara Tattva, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, and the Beej Mantra. Who gave this mantra? Ganaka Rushihi. Every mantra has a mantra giver. He is called Drashta. Why Drashta? Because he sees the mantra. He doesn't think of the mantra. In the supramental state, supraconscious state, he sees the mantra. So they're called Drashta. So each mantra has a Drashta. So Drashta Purvak Mantra Adhyayana is important. Otherwise, everybody would have got up and said some mantra. It doesn't happen that way. And which this mantra is in Chanda. Nichrut Gayatri Chandaha. Nichrut Gayatri Chandaha means this particular mantra is in a Chanda. This Chanda is called Nichrut Gayatri Chanda. What is this Nichrut Gayatri Chanda? Because Chanda can be of different types. We all know that the Chandas are of many different types. There are more than 8 Chandas. Chanda is a part of Veda called Vedanga. We have Shad Darshanas. Similarly, we have Shad Vedangas. Shiksha, Kalpa, Chanda, Vakarana, Nirukta, Jyotisha. These are Shad Vedangas, out of which the meter, science of meter, is Chanda. That Chandas are of 8 types, of which one is called Gayatri Chanda. Another is Anushtupa Chanda, Jagati Chanda, Ushma Chanda. There are 8 different types, of which this is Gayatri Chanda, but not the pure Gayatri. This particular mantra is not a pure Gayatri mantra. This particular mantra is called as Nichrut Gayatri Chanda. So this is in Nichrut Gayatri Chanda, Ganapatir Devata. Ganapati is the deity of this mantra. Mantra is Om Ganganapate Namaha. It is given by Ganaka Rushi. It is narrated in Nichrut Gayatri Chanda. This is the shortest backdrop of why Beej Mantras are there, why we should have mantras, and how to recite a mantra. The recitation of mantra is only possible if at all we want to become the mantra siddhata, then the chitta, the heart has to be pure. So impure person, howsoever he may try, the mantra will not yield the result. So first, change your behavior. Think of welfare of sarve santu, sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Na kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. God, let nobody in this world have any sorrow. Think of others. Because when you think of others, the heart gets purer and purer. Think of yours, it becomes darker and darker. Tamoguni. Sattva guna is everybody. Sahanavavatu. Sahanau bhunaktu. Let everybody come together. Let everybody. Sarvam bhadram karnibhi shunyam. Sarvam. Not me alone. Sarvam bhadram. Whatever is kalyanakari, welfare of me, let everybody have to listen to that. Once this is done, then it becomes easier for us to move forward. That is why some of you might have felt that there could be a digression from the Atharvashirsha, but this was a right opportunity to know in short about what mantra is, what yantra is, what tantra is, what is the importance of sound and sound vibrations. And that is the reason why once we know it, we will imbibe more seriousness into our mantra ucharanam. We will stop here, but there was one question that had come, and that is a question related to Bhagavan Ganesh himself. The question is, many people say that Ganapati with a left-handed the trunk, and there is trunk which is going towards the right hand also, and in some Ganapati it is straight also, and in some Ganapati it is raised also. So it is generally said that the Ganapati should be having left-handed the trunk. So what is the truth behind it, and why it should be like that? The reason why it is so is because the trunk of Ganesha, first of all, is not to be seen at the end of the trunk. Invariably, we see the end of the trunk and then we see whether it is left or right. It should be seen at the origin from where the trunk is coming out. At the origin, if it is going towards the left of Ganapati, not our left, of Ganapati, then that is supposed to be suitable. It is auspicious, all are auspicious, but it is suitable for Grahasthasrami. Why it is suitable for Grahasthasrami? Why not right? Because the left-sided Vamamukhi Ganapati, it is called. Left-sided trunk, because it represents Ida. three nadis, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. The Ida nadi is Chandra Tattva, moon. The moon is with the mind. So moon is Shitala. So it doesn't have any hot properties. So that is why left-handed, left-sided Vama Mukha Ganapati is suitable, because if at all you do not do the rituals properly, at least no hardships will come to us. However, when it is right-sided, which is called Dakshinavata or Dakshinamukhi Ganapati, then it represents Pingala, the Surya Nadi, the heat, the Tej, and this Nadi is very, very powerful. That is why these kind of Ganapatis are found. Whenever they are found, they are called not only Ganapati or Vinayak, they are always called Siddhi Vinayaka. So moment you see there is a temple of Siddhi Vinayaka, it is right sided. That is why in the what is that 8 Ganapatis we have in Maharashtra, Ashta Vinayaka. In the Ashta Vinayak, there is only one Siddhi Vinayak near Ramtek, near Ahmednagar. That is right sided. Rest everything is left sided. So left sided is representation of Ida Nadi, Chandra Pravrutti. Right sided requires very strict rituals, mantras, and it represents Pingala Nadi, Surya. So we have to be careful while having such kind of this thing. Second, if it is in the center or raised, then what does it indicate? It indicates Sushumna Nadi. When it is only in front and down, it represents Kundalini Shakti. That is why we find nobody normally makes that. It is only with some Tantra people and in some old temples we see. And when like Airavat, when it has gone up the trunk, that means the Kundalini has already moved from Muladhara and has already pierced the Sahasrara Chakra. And then Brahmi Bhuta. So that is only for the sadhaka of highest order. That is why we don't see those kind of trunks so often. So that is why, and the trunks are seen basically from this angle. So this is the symbolism. Of course, the symbols of Ganapati are different, and we know trunk is his Viveka. There are different types of Ganapati. Ganapati can have from 2 to 16 hands are there. From 1 to 5 heads are there. A Ganapati with 5 heads is called Heramba Ganapati. Heramba Ganapati is used only by Tantrics. Heramba Ganapati is for Tantrics. Again, these different types of Ganapatis, they vary from each place to place. In some places, Ganapati is not married. In some places, Ganapati is married. Some of them say Ruddhi, Siddhi, Buddhi are his wives. Some of them say these are 3 his slaves. Then he has a brother called Skanda. Then in Tamil Nadu, we call it Piliyar. And then we have a Balaganesh or whatever. So there are different types. And not only here, even abroad. In fact, there is a Ganapati called Maithuna Ganapati. This Ganapati is available only in Japan. This Ganapati is called Kangtin in Japan. It is still there, but it is called Maithuna Ganapati. We don't have it in India anymore. In China, in Mongolia, Indonesia, Bali, Cambodia, there are Ganapatis everywhere. Burma. In Buddhism, there is a Ganapati. In Jainism, there is a Ganapati. Ganapati is everywhere, but its varieties are there. Too many varieties are there. There are a lot of Puranas. Mudgala Purana is there. Ganesha Purana is there. Atharvashirsha is there. There are Tantric Siddhi mantras are there. Ganesha Tantra is also there. Ganesha is used for black magic also. So let us not get into those details. We want to restrict ourselves to the Atharvashirsha and the purest possible meaning of the Atharvashirsha. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, thank you very much. Very lot to think about. Some basic concepts clarified, and I some more things to read. I'll just wait for any sadhaks if they have any questions. They can unmute and ask. Dilip ji and Chirag ji have unmuted. Uh, Dilip ji, would you go first? And Chirag ji, I'll ask you to come after that.
Okay. Hari Om Sanjay ji. Your narration was both Vedic as well as scientific, so you could get deep into that. I have a doubt. In fact, I mean, some of the pronunciations you have corrected. I used to chant it in a different way. But after this, Ardhendu Alasidam, Tarendram is coming, no? That
Yes.
is, yeah, that, what is that? Tarendram means, I didn't get that clearly, I don't know.
Ardhendu Lasitam. Ardhendu Tarena Ruddham, to grow. Ru is the root. Rushi, Ru. Ru means to grow. Rugveda, Ru. Ru, and that which grows is also light or knowledge. Isliye Ru is also called as knowledge. But Ru means to grow. Tarena Ruddham, Tarena Trutiya. Tarena means by Omkara the growth is made of this mantra. That means you put Omkara. Tarena Ruddham means it has been grown, it has been made majestic by inclusion of word Tara. Tara is Om. In fact, in Buddhism, Tara is taken, pronounced as Tara only.
And this, there is one Siddhivinayak Ganapati in Prabhadevi. That is Siddhivinayak or left hand or right hand? I mean, just I think it is left handed.
All Siddhivinayaks are right-handed, right-sided.
There is one in Titwala also.
The Siddhivinayak epithet, or Siddhivinayak name is given only when it is right-sided. That is why Ashtra are left-sided except one which is Siddhivinayak in that, which is in Ahmednagar.
Okay. Hari Om. I have many questions, but I am not taking your time because it's not the right time. We'll catch it some other thing. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Dr. Sanjay ji, beautiful. Science and spirituality together, mind-blowing. Dr. Sanjay ji, I had attended Kriya Yoga once, and they also emphasize on sound, vibration, and light.
Right.
So, how do we connect that? Because you also explained so much in detail about the sound and its effect. So, how does Dr. Sanjay ji vibration and the light connects with that?
See, the Kriya Yoga is a recognized branch of yoga, but the definition of Kriya Yoga is Tapaha Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranani Kriya Yoga. So Kriya Yoga is one which has tapas into it, Swadhyaya, that is Abhyas into it. And so when you see Patanjali Yoga Shastra, it is Ashtanga Yoga, of which three Kriya Yoga, which is the Karne wali cheez. See, others are, these are all tapas, swadhyaya, these are action-oriented package of Ashtanga Yoga is separated and developed into a new yoga called Kriya Yoga. So Kriya Yoga uses these three things. One is austerities, tapas, study of scriptures, swadhyaya, and self-surrender, Ishwar Pranidhana. These three are practiced in Kriya Yoga. While doing this, they also take the help of mantras or tantras or yantras, but focus is on these three main things. As opposite that in Nada Yoga, the focus is on sound. So because the focus is on sound, mantras are given enormous amount of impetus and focus in Nada Yoga. So you will find it is not a very compartmentalized division between different yogas, but it is the beginning you do from that with little pronounced emphasis on a particular aspect, and ultimately you reach to the same truth. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. Truth is one. It is told in many ways. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Wonderful. Thank you. Hari Om.
Just a small thing. I'm muting people as soon as you ask questions. That is because otherwise the sound is not clear. I apologize. It sounds very rude when you get a message, I'm muted you, but it's only because if your two mics are unmuted, then it's not clear for everyone. I'll request anyone else if they have any questions. I know it's very time, but it's such an interesting topic. Ji Suresh ji.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one very small question that when we recite Om, uh, does it require a certain amount of frequency one has to maintain to get the effect of the Omkar chatting? And if so, what is the right frequency that one should chat the Om?
Hari Om. There are two views about this. One is a mantra, when it is recited with the right frequency, then it naturally gets the siddhi at the earliest, or it becomes a siddha mantra. The issue is, for the frequencies to be gotten right, initially we are all aware of how the varna and swar are pronounced, and we normally try to be loyal to that varna and swara. And by using Vaikhari, we start doing the japam or reciting the mantra or uttering the mantra. In the process of repetitive japa, as the japa moves forward, based on the purity of the sadhaka who is doing it and the ekagrata he is able to achieve, the mantra on its own undergoes a transformation, and then the frequencies that are emanated from such sadhaka automatically start going close to the right frequencies of that particular mantra. So that is why happen to be the new sadhaka who has not yet been initiated by a guru, then we can carry on with our Vaikhari mantra for some time. As we start evolving from our own as a ideal sadhaka or shishya, then a stage comes when the mantra automatically starts attaining or reaching the frequencies that are required. And there, how one becomes sure about the changes. What happens is, moment the mantra ucharan starts, the sadhak starts getting some beautiful fragrances near his nose. Very nice aromas, smells start coming. Gunjana, the sound of beautiful sounds start coming to the ear. So that means first the Jnanendriyas start seeing certain things which are not there, but they start giving you pleasure. The eye sometimes starts seeing some scintillating figures or some lights in front of the eyes. To give an example, the Gurudev Ranade, he was watching a football match. He was young that time, but he was a sadhaka. All of a sudden in the football match, he saw all those lights in front of his eyes. In fact, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also asked Swami Vivekananda a question. During his second meeting, he asked him, by any chance, do you see any light in the night when you concentrate or meditate? Vivekananda said, yeah, every day I see that light. What is so great about it? Then Ramakrishna said, there is something great you don't know. Because he was a natural Siddha sadhak. So that is how, initially when we do it, we try to be as perfect in pronunciation the way Sanskrit is taught to us. But for the frequencies and the vibrations, because when frequency and vibration is not of that word, it has to resonate with the cosmos or the inner Hrud Guha, as we call it. That happens only after repetitive mantras as we move forward. That is called mantra siddhi. That is why we say you have to do for so many times. Ek laksha japa, ek koti japa, dasa laksha japa, Purascharana vidhi. All these are nothing else but repetitive attempts so that slowly the mind becomes laya, dissolved in the mantra, and the mantra takes the shape and the size of the consciousness that we are carrying. That is when the mantra is supposed to be siddha. This is how Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram mantra was made siddha by Samartha Ramadas. For as many as so many years in the Godavari river, going there early morning at the Brahma Muhurta, at the west deep water, looking at the sun by giving him the arghya, he used to start chanting the mantra, and he used to stop only when the midnight sun used to be on the head for many years. And then the mantra became siddha and Rama Raya appeared in front of him. So that is how the frequency part of it goes. Hariyu.
Manishji, you had a question?
No, I had to just thank Sanjay ji for replying about this Ganapati's trunk side. Hariyu.
Sanjay ji, one cheating question. When you're 1 year at home, what can you play in the back? It's obvious. So one thing I'm taking out is, as a person who's in the corporate world, you use a lot of words which you don't want to because it's fashionable. So one thing that really became clear to me is don't use words which are not nice because it has a much deeper impact. So that's a very, very good learning. But just what could kind of background music can be played in the house to energize, to calm energies? So should it be Vedic chanting playing? I'm sure it can be many, but just from a scientific point of view, are there any thoughts on what could be played softly in the background? One. Two, while you're sleeping, is it good to play some sounds? Because I'm in the sleep state, there should be something that's happening in the subconscious. So at a very low level, can you play something which will help? Just these two, anything?
Hari Om. The background music or background sound for calming the energies or whatever as we call it, there are two ways of it. One is background of what? You can have the background music playing in your mind without the sound of which only is known to you. For example, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, if you are saying it in your mind, then that sound itself can vibrate. For example, even while sleeping, instead of putting any music or anything, just close your eyes and then keep doing either Shiva mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. In fact, that is the right time when you have nothing else to do. At least you can focus on the mantra. What will happen is normally concentration has 5 enemies. One of them is Nidra. So at least the sleep will come. We are going to see that in Patanjali Yoga Shastra as we move forward. So putting some amount of external music is also of assistance. Why? Because some of these songs move us so badly and we say, oh, I like this song so much. What happened? They are words only. But the same song may not appeal to others. That is because you identify yourself with that and then you enjoy. So similarly, there could be anything, bhajan of Lord, if it is done with that earnest. For example, when a Sufi sings, there are some Sufi songs which are there sung by actual Sufis. I'm not talking of marketing people and all that. Actual Sufis, then it appeals to the heart so much. Vivekananda used to sing and people used to literally hold him and keep singing for 2 hours, 3 hours. That was his sound because it is to come from there. So similarly, if something similar is available around us, playing that chitta vritti ullasita, that is the main purpose. If chitta vritti is ullasita means what? Positive. You feel good, you feel happy, and that is only possible when sharir is in sudruda avastha, mana is in sudruda avastha. Then these external inputs additionally help you, and that is why when arti is done, arti is same arti we are doing for so many years, but moment arti is done, our mind at least gets partly elevated because now we start Lambodara, Pitambara. That means we know that now we are going to talk about Ganapati. So effect will come 5% or 100% depends upon how much you identify with the sound and rather than sound identifying with you. But as a personal individual sadhak, the best part is to have a humming sound of Lord's name. Name is our choice. Hinduism give you full freedom. Take Omkar, take any mantra that you like. Jai Shri Ram, that is also enough. Shambho, that is also enough. Bam Bhole, but that whole feeling has to be there that Shiva is now here. The way Vivekananda came from Kashmir, and when he from Kashmir, when he came back to Calcutta for 6 months, his eyes were red. And when people asked him why, he said, "Can't you see Shiva is sitting on my shoulder?" That is called bhakti. That is called mantra. That is called sadhana. So elevate yourself and then take the mantra, whichever you like, in the form of external music, because nowadays you get one rhythm being played again and again on a CD or something. That also is fine. But invariably, I have seen that it is playing in the Devaghar, in Deva Puja place, and later on nobody pays attention to it because the mind fluctuates from there. Important thing is to bring the mind to that. Hari Om.
Deepti, you had a suggestion.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji, thank you very much because this Ganapati Atharvashirsha, our late Unniyatan has taught us over an year. So it was a great experience to learn from him how to chant it, and I learned the meaning from you now. It is really very nice. Thank you very much. Because time is too late. Otherwise, I would have even loved to chant it.
Definitely keep a session because we want to know the proper way of chanting.
Yeah. Okay. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji. Just one next week, next coming Wednesday, instead of this Ganesh Atharvashirsha, we will keep for Adi Shankaracharya class. Is okay? Yeah. Okay. Hari Om.
Okay, I think we are good to close, Sanjay ji. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.